On today's episode of Locked On Wild, a deeper look at actual lineup depth between the Minnesota Wild and the Dallas Stars.
Hey, this is marc-andre, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Marcus Foligno, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you can win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we are going to discuss some special teams observations through the early part of the season. Surprise, surprise, the penalty kill starting to wilt as we move into further games. We'll also talk about Jesper Wallstedt and some of the comments that he had in regards to his first start of the season. And I wanted to take a look at what the Dallas Stars are doing with their lineup and compare it to how the Minnesota Wild are trying to create some lineup depth. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed media member once again for the 2025-2026 season, host of Seth on Sports as well. And we're kind of doing a little something different here with the Wild currently trailing 3-0 to the Dallas Stars. Just wanted to go over some observations that I've seen over the first few games of the season. Well, let's start with the special teams. Obviously, the power play has gotten off to a great start, and I think there are a few reasons for that. We obviously talk about, number one, the chemistry that Kirill, Kaprizov, and marc-andre have put together for the first few seasons of Kirill Kaprizov's career. It was him and Matt Zuccarello on the power play that were creating a nice level of chemistry to be able to generate chances. And now we have seen Kaprizov and Boldy really do a great job of just looking for each other on either side of the net. You talk about those face-off circles and the ability to get to your spot and get clean and accurate and fast shots off at the goalie, shots with purpose, not getting part of the puck, getting the whole thing. And we have seen that already a few times between Kaprizov and Boldy, the ability to find each other on both sides of the net. And Kaprizov had against the Blue Jackets a goal on a nice feed from Boldy. But you think about some of the other things too, the playmaking ability. I'm going to go back to the marc-andre power play goal once again, where he just walked right up to the net and tucked it past Darcy Kuemper. He could have settled for a shot just from the perimeter, and instead he walked it up to the front of the net and he was able to tuck it past Darcy Kuemper. So we're seeing a little more aggressiveness in those power play situations. You're seeing the chemistry between Kaprizov and Boldy that is working out pretty effectively. Zeev Boyum at the top has, I think, given this power play a little different dynamic than we have seen previously, because you look at what he has. Well, you look at what he is looking to do compared to some of the other Wild players that have been captaining the power play, Brock Faber in particular. Zeev is much more of a natural fit at it and is also just looking to step up and jump up in the play himself. which adds another dynamic. And you then, as a penalty kill, you can't game plan as much for, that unit, because Zeev is jumping up as opposed to staying back. And, it just feels like it's got a little better balance than it has had over the previous few seasons. Now, we have also seen the Wild deploy in the early part of the season, having Vladimir Tarasenko kind of run the show behind the net, and finding players on one side of the ice or the other to kind of facilitate from back there as well. And it's a nice little high-low that the Wild have been utilizing so far. Penalty kill, on the other hand, has been it's right back to where it was. And it, again, I think comes down to, as I have called it, the 90% rule. And a good example of the 90% rule was a kill that we saw against the Los Angeles Kings, where Marco Rossi was on his backhand right along the boards. And instead of trying to do too much, he elected to take a split second and get the puck to Zach Bogosian, who was a little behind him, but had a clean look to be able to clear. And the clearing attempt was effectively launched off the boards and all the way down. It's these little details that sink or swim your penalty kill. The Wild in the face-off circle, winning that first face-off is critical to having a successful penalty kill. The Wild have been very uneven about that. Now, this year, one of the big changes that we've seen, and I was talking with a few people on X about this, is we have seen more deployment of Marco Rossi, of Matt Boldy, trying to get some of those skill guys involved in the kill, as opposed to just, your lower on the roster type players. So it will be interesting to see the results in that instance as well. But, as we sit here, Dallas has a couple of power play goals. The Kings got a power play goal themselves. And of course, the Columbus Blue Jackets had a couple as well. And it's just some of those same things. Like, the Wild are doing 90% of what they need to do. But unless you do the full 100, you're going to end up giving up power play goals. And net front presence continues to be a large issue. In the game against the Stars, Zach Bogosian was trying to clear out the front of the net and was focused on getting his guy out from in front of the net. The Stars see that he's not looking, and so they send a puck down towards the front. It goes off of his skate into the net. The Kings had a power play goal that they scored where Brock Faber was clearing out the front of the net, and he had gone completely to one side trying to clear a player out. The puck kicked out to the left, completely wide open in front, and it was an easy tap-in goal for the Kings. So the net front presence just continues to be a large issue with this team, and this is not something new. This has been an issue for years. But these are the types of things that can sink or swim your special teams. And frankly, as I sit here, kind of tired of talking about the penalty kill already this season. We're 4 games in, and I'm already at the point where it's like, okay, are we going to just do this for the rest of the season? You have to simply find a way. You have to simply find a way to eliminate the 10% mistakes. Because until you do, you're just going to continue to be put in these situations because teams have the book on you. So you have to find a way to rise above and overcome, especially on the penalty kill. Like that can't tank your season again for the fourth season in a row. Just can't do it. So, again, I'm going to make this point a million times this season. Regular season is all about getting everything ready to go for the postseason. Now, you have to win a fair amount of the games to put yourself in position to be able to go, but it is not a finished product now. You got to get it to that point as the season unfolds. And those are just some of the areas. If I can point this stuff out watching from my couch, other teams can see it as well. So just a couple of observations on the special teams side of things as we continue the early part of the season. That is going to be a work in progress for most of the year, but at least the results and the Wild getting a power play goal again here tonight, courtesy of Matt Boldy, and a nice deflection in front. Power play continues to be a great bright spot so far this year, but it's not sustainable to have a 40-50% power play. Let's get that 5-on-5 scoring figured out. I wanted to talk about Jesper's season debut and some of the quotes that he had after the game, just showing a real turning point from last season to where he's at right now. We'll discuss as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets across the app. The Minnesota Vikings back in action this weekend, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who have suddenly been reeling a little bit so far this season. And the Vikings coming into that game against Philly, a great opportunity for them to get themselves over the 500 mark at 4-2. The Eagles currently come into the game as 1.5 point favorites. So this is basically a pick 'em game. So if you're feeling strong about the Vikings, there's your $5 bet. And then if you win, $300 in bonus bets to use however you see fit. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and all of your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Let's talk a little bit about Jesper Wallstedt, who picked up his season opening win in his season debut against the Los Angeles Kings, a 4-3 shootout win over the Los Angeles Kings. The Wild led 3-0 in that game. The Kings did get it 3 goals in the third period, but you saw the emotion from Jesper in the shootout. He makes the 4 saves of varying, angles and levels. He makes the 4 saves. He's pumped after every one of them. And then he celebrates after he makes the final save to clinch the win. Gets a great hand from his teammates. And I think you look at the journey that Jesper has been on over the last couple of years. His season last year for Iowa was not good. A lot of that, I think, had to do with the team that was in front of him. But he also played a role in those numbers that he put up, last season. 9, 14, and 5, a 3.59 goals against average, and 879 save percentage. It was not a great season for a guy who has a lot of pressure on him to be, one of the Wild are expecting him to be a big piece going forward. And so there was a lot of pressure on him to be ready to go this year and to be a big impact player for this team. And he comes out, he gets the win. He's a pivotal part in not only that, but even getting the game to a shootout. The Wild had to kill off a penalty during overtime against a pretty good Los Angeles Kings team. And Jesper made some big saves in the OT, and then he made all the saves that were needed in the shootout. And Jesper had some very interesting comments talking about last year and getting himself ready to go for this season. Dylan Lokes did a very nice write-up about Jesper for the hockeynews.com, friend of the show. Jesper said, I think all the experience from last year, I think that comes into play. I know what it's like losing. I know what it's been to have bounces go against me. I know what it's like to break down mentally. I've done it now. I know what that feeling is like. I know what mindset I should have to find success instead of failure. And I feel like no matter what faced me, no matter what happened, if goals were scored or not, I feel like I always had a clean mindset and focused on the job to win the game. And that is a big step up for Jesper, is just that mentality of like, you can't dwell. If you give up a goal, you can't dwell on it. If you have a weird bounce that goes against you, you can't dwell on it. Think about those goals that the Kings scored in that third period against the Wild. You have the Kevin Fiala goal. Jesper's in good position. He's where he should be. And the puck still goes in. Obviously, that's frustrating, but that's just great situation where you gotta move on to the next play. You got to be ready for the next play because there still is plenty of game left. The Kings scored 2 more times after that, and yet Jesper was able to shake that off, and he was able to come back and help the team win. And I go back to something that John Hines said regarding Jesper before the season started last year. He said, we want to see how he does when things don't go according to plan. And I'm not suggesting by any means that this was the hope was, hey, let's see how he does when a bunch of stuff just goes kittywampus. But that is a part of the game that I think sometimes catches people off guard. Is you go through and you just have a ton of success at every level, and you get up to the NHL level or even college, and you have not had to deal with being part of a team and having players that are as talented as you or even more talented. You don't know what to do with it. There have been numerous examples of players who get to that level and they just don't know how to handle lack of success. And it crushes them. And so I think, and John Hines was adamant, he was very vocal during the preseason about how much work Jesper put in and how good of a job he's done, because I think he finally got that mindset switch to where, like, one goal allowed it's not going to define you. Your next play does. And so to hear him say stuff like that, and to hear him say, I learned from what happened last year, and it's showing on the ice. Now I know it is one start, so it is going to be, what does he do in the next one? That is going to be a key for him in his development. But just even hearing that mindset tweak is a good start for Jesper's for his NHL career. I think another big piece of this was Jesper coming into the season knowing that he was going to be on the NHL roster. He knew after he signed the 2-year extension that he was going to be on the NHL roster. That was not up for debate. There's no Marc-Andre Fleury this year to take those backup starts. And so he knew that if he put together a strong preseason, that he was going to make the team. There wasn't going to be any sort of 3 goalie rotation like we talked about last year that never came to be. So I think there was in a way less pressure, and he could just worry about what he was doing, and forces that he couldn't control did not come into play this year like they did last year. So I thought it was a real good start to the process for Jesper, but obviously we're 1 game in. There's a lot that can happen between now and the end of the season. So a good start, but I very much am looking forward to seeing what he does for his next start, and the start after that, and the start after that. We're going to finish the show today by talking about lineup depth, because the Dallas Stars have done some things with their lineup that are surprising, but we'll talk about kind of why Dallas can do those things and what it allows them to do for their lineup and their scoring. That's on the way as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial picture together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. So as we are recording this, the Minnesota Wild are trailing the Dallas Stars 3-1. Matt Boldy has the lone goal for the Wild on a power play, his 4th of the season. Boldy's been one of the, spoiler alert, Boldy's been one of the standout players for the Wild so far here tonight. But I want to talk about what the Dallas Stars are doing with their lineup, because when I saw the Dallas Stars lines, I got to tell you, I was a little perplexed by the deployment of one former Minnesota Wild wing / center who is playing top line minutes for the Dallas Stars, Mr. Sam Steele. And that got me looking at, like, what does the rest of the lineup look like if they are willing to do that? If they're willing to put a guy that we deployed as a 4th liner on their top line, how does that work? And you'd be surprised at how the rest of the lineup looks for the Stars. But this is how you create lineup depth. And the Stars, they got pairs of their lines that you would expect, and have, kind of plugged and played the rest of the lineup. They've got Sam Steele on the top line. He is with Roope Hintz and Mikko Rantanen. You'd expect Hintz and Rantanen to be on the top line. The second line is Colin Blackwell, Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin. You would expect Matt Duchene to be on the second line. You would expect Tyler Seguin to probably be a top 6 guy. Colin Blackwell, not so much. Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, and Maverick Bork is the third line that the Stars deployed tonight. And then you've got Radek Faksa, Justin Hrychowian. I know I'm butchering that. I apologize. They've got him on the fourth line with Radek Faksa and with Nathan Bastian. But now look at this compared to what the Wild are doing. So you've got Rantanen, you've got Duchene and Seguin, you've got Robertson and Johnston, all spread out throughout the lineup. Good luck defending that. And I know I've advocated for the Wild to keep Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy together because of how good they have been. But that's provided that the rest of the lineup holds serve. And to this point, that just has not, in 5-on-5 play, that has not been the case. The production levels have widely varied for the non-top line so far this year. And so this is just kind of a, hey, if Dallas can do it, you know, Minnesota Wild certainly should try as well. That is going to be something that they just have to get going as the season unfolds. You've got to find a way to get that second line going. We did see during the game Kirill Kaprizov moved with Joel Eriksson and Vladimir Tarasenko. So I think that will hopefully get Tarasenko going a little bit. And then Matt Boldy with Marcus Johansson and Marco Rossi. So those have been the combinations that the Wild used as the game wears on. Not a huge fan of pieces of that. But again, this is something that we knew was going to be, we knew that this was going to be one of the big issues that needed to be fixed and that was going to be the one that was going to need to kind of play itself out. We knew that coming into the season. So that's not new information. The Wilds brought Vladimir Tarasenko in to try to be the guy who finally kind of fills that hole, that leaky spot on that second line. But we knew that was a gamble because of what he did as far as numbers go last year. So you just have to keep trying combinations as Kirill Kaprizov scores a power play goal to make the score 3-2. Stars up by 1 with just under 7 minutes to play. You just got to keep trying combinations. And if it were me, I would cycle through anybody that gives you potential to finally fill that gap and plug that hole, because you cannot be a one-line team and expect to go anywhere in the postseason. You can't. It's not possible. And this is where I think Danil Yurov kind of comes into play, because there were rumblings that the Wild were going to use him as more of a wing to start the season, as opposed to a tried and true center. But now he's getting mixed in as a center, and Yakov Trenyan has the ability to play center as well. But here's one that I'm going to suggest. If the Wild are not willing, if John Hines is not willing to put, say, Liam Ogren up there, like Ryan Hartman, I think, has started the season well enough that he warrants a shot in that spot. I know you want him to be a center, but I would rather figure out the second line scoring than third line center. The second line scoring is just infinitely more important than who your third line center is. So you can figure that out. You can kind of plug and play that. But if push comes to shove, give Ryan Hartman a chance to see if he can provide some scoring and shooting touch for that second line. Or, long term, like, what is the philosophy that we're using, that we're utilizing compared to some of these teams like Colorado, like Dallas? Maybe just look for a little more offense throughout the lineup. Just a suggestion. I will see. Time will clearly tell on all of those points. But that's going to do it for today's episode here of Locked On Wild. We will be debuting our new weekly bit tomorrow, Power Rankings. We're going to be doing weekly power rankings for the Central Division. We'll feature guest appearances by particular hosts of Locked On NHL shows, as well as other guests. We're going to kind of keep things fresh as far as the power rankings go, but that's coming up for you tomorrow. So make sure to keep an eye out for our first edition of Central Division Power Rankings. Make sure to give us a like and a follow so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.